So I got to admit, it's a big game coming up on Monday night in prime time, featured spotlight for both the Bears and the Rams. Like, this is a marquee type of matchup. This is a matchup that certainly could have playoff implications down the road. So both teams, you would think, are going to come in really hyped up and really prepared for this matchup because it's going to be a big one. It certainly will. When you look going into this game on Monday night, you look at the Bears. I think at last week in their performance against the Panthers, where they won 23-16, they easily got their best defensive performance of the year. I think it was easily their best defensive performance of the year. You know, the offense is clearly Nick Foles' offense, and that's for better and for worse. Like, how much better is it really than Mitch? It is a fair question because this offense, is just too inconsistent and has too many periods of time where they just really, really struggle. Scored something in the third quarter last week, not a freaking miracle, but you get what I'm saying. All the while, though, the Bears are now 5-1, leaders in the NFC North. You think about, long-term vision if you're a Bears fan that actually wants this team to get into the playoffs because you think they can contend. In the last couple of weeks, they got, those important victories over the Buccaneers and the Panthers. As a result, you're talking about tiebreakers that could potentially come into play later on down the line when you talk about playoff positioning, playoff seeding. So those are certainly a big deal. And this is another matchup where that could certainly come into play. With that said, I still got to call out, this has been a kind of fluky, lucky season and a kind of fluky, lucky start to the Bears. After watching 6 games, while the record is one thing, I'm still trying to figure out who is this team really supposed to be? Because their defense is still not of the same level as 2018. They're just not. You could hang that up. This is not an elite unit. They're probably a good to very good unit, depending on the week and the matchups, but elite they are not. And as far as the offense goes, it's the same old story with this team, except for one thing. Now they can't even run the damn ball. If you're a Bears fan, as you start facing other good teams, and with good secondaries, you really got to be concerned about their ability to consistently move the offense. Because they can't run the ball a lick. That's got to be concerning. And you look at some of the wins they've had, the Bucs and the Panthers wins are a little more validating for sure. But the other ones, Detroit should have been an L. It wasn't, I get that, but realistically it should have been. Atlanta should have been an L. Wasn't, but it really could and should have been. And the Giants game, they were lucky to come out of that with a victory. And you could even say that with the Bucs game. Even the Panthers game came down to it. Maybe this is just one of these seasons similar to 2001 that every week is just going to come down to the last 2 minutes. You just have to kind of adjust to get used to it. That's the vibe I'm getting right now. But I also know how that 2001 season ultimately finished. No matter what, the next 3 weeks of this schedule for the Bears is going to tell you a lot. It's going to have to. They go in these next 3 games and they win, even if it's in fluky fashion, even if it's in close fashion. Now you're talking about them at 8-1. That's going to even shut me up a little bit. A little bit. It's going to have to. I won't have a choice. But if all of a sudden, you got to go to the Rams on Monday night, turn around, host the Saints, and then got to go back the next week on the road to Tennessee. If you come out of those next 3 games and you're winless, now you're 5-4. That 5-1 start don't look very good anymore. It doesn't matter how you get to 5-4. 5-4 is no guarantee of a playoff berth at all. If you win one of these next 3 games, maybe a lot of you are probably targeting the Saints game perhaps, 6-3, you could make a playoff argument at that point. But, again, what would that really mean? As far as the Rams, as much as I'm talking about the Bears and their start, the Rams played a good opponent on Sunday night, and they got beat by the 49ers. And you can look at this Rams team and you say, yeah, they're 4-2, and they're tied for second in the NFC West. And that's a dogfight of a race for a division. That's a loaded division this year. That's top to bottom the best division in football this year, period. But all 4 of the Rams' wins have come against NFC East teams. The 2 legit teams that they've played, the Bills and here, the 49ers last Sunday night, they've lost. And don't forget that Bills game, even though that was on the road, they had a huge deficit. They came back, and the Bills had to come back to win, but still. They don't get to play 16 games against the NFC East. When are they going to beat somebody that's not in the NFC East? So again, as much as I talk about the fluky kind of lucky start to the season for the Bears and the advantageous position they've been put in by the early season schedule, I can say the exact same damn thing about the Rams because other than the Bills and the 49ers, their other 4 opponents are all trash. Absolute trash. So who exactly are the Rams? Is the 4-2 record an indication of this as a team you take seriously and they're a legit playoff team and they could be a force down the road? Or is this a team you look at and say, they're 4-2 because they didn't play anybody in those 4 wins? Because they didn't. Now what do? Now who are they going to be when they start facing some real teams? It's a great question. First time they played somebody in the division, they got spanked a little bit. So who are the Rams and who are the Bears? Like this, as much as anything else, could potentially break down to be an identity game for both teams come Monday night. Now, the recent matchup history is there. Like you've seen the past couple of years, the matchup and how it played out in 2018, I almost said 2016, good Lord. 2018, the Bears won 15-6, if you remember. Bears defense just made Jared Goff look horrible, but Trubisky sucked too. That was kind of a theme, both matchups, both years. 2018, though, it was in Soldier Field, that cold night in December. The Bears dominated that game. They imposed their will. They made the Rams look really, really, really bad. And then in 2019, the Rams won 17-7. Again, Trubisky absolutely sucked, but Goff in that offense for the Rams wasn't a whole lot better. It's just the Bears couldn't do anything offensively, and the Bears defense was only going to be able to stop them but so much. And that's a key theme. Both games featured low-scoring efforts, low-scoring affairs. They were both primetime matchup type of games, and both featured crappy performances by Goff and Trubisky. So are we going to get better quarterback play in this matchup the third time around with Foles and Goff? The signs initially would indicate to me we will not. When you look at keys to victory for this matchup Monday night for the Bears, the 49ers showed you the way. It's easier said than done, obviously, because you're talking about the best defensive player in football today, bar none. You were talking about one of the greatest defensive players in NFL history. And yes, you can say that now. It's been enough time in his career. We're now in year 7. Aaron Donald's already a first ballot Hall of Famer. Eventually he's going to be in the Reggie White, Bruce Smith, Lawrence Taylor type of conversation of is he the best defensive player of all time? When you talk about this, the Bears cannot let Aaron Donald off the blocks. If that means you have to risk one-on-one matchups other places, do it. You cannot let Aaron Donald get going. You cannot let him impose his will on this game. Because if you do, he will, and Nick Foles is going to be effed in a big, big way. This offense also needs to get out and get a lead early. When you look at the 2 losses that the Rams have had this year, one common theme is the Bills and the 49ers jumped on them early. So the Bears need to get that offense going early. And especially when you talk about the history of the past 2 years of this matchup between these two teams, the Bears combined to score 22 points. They're averaging 11 points a game. That's not going to get it done. And I don't care if the Bears defense is not elite anymore. They shouldn't be set up in that type of crappy situation. You're in the NFL. It should be not for long if your offense continues to suck hind tit like it has the past couple of seasons. You need to get out and you need to get on top of the Rams early and put some pressure on their offense for Los Angeles. That's what you got to do. Defensively, Kyle Fuller and Jalen Johnson have to show up well against Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods. I thought Jalen Johnson got roughed up a little bit, exposed a little bit. For a guy who was really having a good start to his rookie year, he really was. Last week was not a great performance. And you're going to have that. He could be year 4 or 5 in the league, and sometimes it's going to happen. You just have bad games, and that's okay. But you can't have that again. You got to have him be able to respond, because now, whether he's matched up against Kupp or Woods, whatever the case might be, he's facing better talent than he did the previous week against Carolina. Same thing for Fuller. Fuller, you could see that he brings a little bit of presence to that secondary. He brings a physicality and a toughness that this team needs at times. If the refs aren't calling BS, unnecessary roughness penalties on him, then you could really get into a situation where he can bring a big hit, he could lay some lumber, make a big play happen that changes the course of the game. But these guys have got to show up in that secondary, and they got to play lights out. And TDs, not field goals, when you get in the red zone. It's one thing to say, the Bears defense, at least when they let teams get into the red zone, they make it really hard to score touchdowns. That's great, but eventually you're playing with the devil there. You're playing with fire. At some point you're going to get burned doing that. So you can't count on that forever. Again, this means the so-called alleged offensive guru, Matt Nagy, you need to figure out how the hell to get your team in the end zone. Oh, and by the way, stop giving so much damn playing time to Jimmy Graham. Get Cole Kmet more involved in the passing game. You did take a second rounder on him. There's not anything Jimmy Graham's doing that Cole Kmet physically could not do at this point in time. Let the young kid play and see what the hell you got. Like, it's not that hard. And maybe it would make a bit of a difference in the red zone because you can potentially deploy him and Jimmy Graham. There's one thing at least Jimmy Graham can do is he can make a little bit of things happen in the red zone still. So why not use him and Kmet in the same way? Idiot. As far as the Rams, they got to knock Foles out of the AF. Just like say it like the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes. You got to knock them out of the AF early and throughout the day consecutively. Like, they got to knock him on his ass because this is a defense in their 4 wins. They got 16 sacks. If they could say, and that was even including one of the games where they didn't get any sacks at all. Like, if the Rams can get some pressure and they can get on you early, like that secondary with Jalen Ramsey and Taylor Rapp and others, like they can cause some problems. So one of the huge keys to success for the Rams is going to be exploit that soft-ass offensive line of the Bears with Leno and Massey on the outside and the interior, that line without James Daniels. Get after Foles. It might mean you give up a big passing play or two, but I think you can live with that early on in the game. Because you want to get pressure on Foles, get him uncomfortable. Because if you do early, it's going to take the Bears out of whatever rhythm they might have offensively and put them in a really, really bad way. I think a target for this game for this team is 100 rushing yards for Darrell Henderson. Now, last week the Bears did a little bit better against Mike Davis and the Panthers running game, so that was a good performance. Like I said, that was easily the Bears' best defensive performance of the year. But this is a team that has shown this year that they can be had on the ground. You know, if you're the Rams, play this one a little closer to the vest. Like, let Henderson get some carries, you know, versus Malcolm Brown or whoever the hell. Like, focus on trying to grind this Bears team down a little bit on the ground. Their defense must stay on the attack with the Bears in the second half. Because this is a Bears team that has a little bit. The one positive for this Bears team right now is they have a belief that no game is too far gone or too far out of reach. And they have a lot of experience playing in close, tight games this year. And they have done relatively well in those spots. So if you're the Rams, and especially if you get a lead on them early, you cannot sit back. You cannot play passive. You must attack, 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 attack. And same thing for their offense, as I said, for the Bears. You must convert those offensive red zone trips when you get them against this good Bears defense. You must convert them into touchdowns. And that's going to be a huge thing. You could talk about third down conversion percentage. You can talk about all that other stuff. And I'm not saying those things don't matter, but at the end of the day, if you get into the red zone, you need to score touchdowns, not field goals. And the team that does better with that on Monday night is most likely going to win this game. When I look at this matchup, like I said, it's 2 teams to me that have really good records that I still don't really know what the hell to expect out of them. I don't think that's an unfair statement to say. The Bears have benefited quite a bit for some breaks and some of the early scheduling that they have, but sure as hell the Rams have too, so what's the difference here? You know, if it comes down to who do you believe in more, Goff or Foles, can I choose option C? You look at the history the past couple of years of matchup, it certainly has been a defensive battle. With both teams can bring the lumber on the defensive side of the ball. I like the Rams a little bit more in this game. And for Bears fans, this is probably a reason for a celebration, because they're going to say, hashtag Jack Jinx is on the Rams now, and it could be. Keep it up, though. I'll put the jinx on the Bears really quick. I look at this matchup. It's in LA, Monday night. Have some concerns about Nagy's coaching performances in primetime spots. I'll take the Rams to win here 17-13. I would expect this to be a similar type of defensive battle, defensive struggle like we've seen the past couple of years. I have no indication to me, especially since the Bears can't run the ball, like that this is going to be any different than we've seen the past couple of seasons. And I just think the Rams are a little bit of a better team.